This final retrospective from the 21st century takes us back to the year 2000, and the biggest story of the year was the crowning moment to one of the wildest stories in the history of the NFL. Kurt Warner, that kid who once played in the red and gold of Regis Catholic and then spent 3 years as a backup quarterback at UNI.
I'm just grateful to finally get my chance.
Finally realized his NFL dream, capping his first season as a starter with a Super Bowl ring and a league MVP. Warner's story was good enough to be turned into a movie. After toiling for years in the Arena League and NFL Europe, 1999 was the year he finally got his shot. And the kid out of Cedar Rapids made the most of it, leading the NFL in touchdowns, completion percentage, and passer rating.
I've had a lot of success playing football, and I wasn't going to stop having success just because I made it to the NFL.
Eventually winning the first of 2 MVPs.
I just thought that I would play well, and this team would be successful, and I'd have a great year.
And his postseason run had the nation captivated. KGAN was in St. Louis when the Rams narrowly secured an 11-6 win over Tampa Bay to clinch a spot in the Super Bowl.
The Rams come from behind in the final 4 minutes to beat the Bucs. They are on to the Super Bowl.
Next week, it's Super Bowl time in hot Atlanta.
And Super Bowl 34 is still remembered as one of the best in NFL history. A 400-yard, 2-touchdown performance from Warner helped the Rams to their first Super Bowl win and another MVP honor for Kurt. The rest of 2000 was a parade of public appearances for Kurt. He was in commercials. He was a headline guest on Jay Leno.
What was the name of the grocery store you worked at?
It was called Hy-Vee.
The Hy-Vee.
The Hy-Vee.
And that unforgettable start to the 2000 calendar year wasn't the end for Kurt. He'd go on to play in 3 Super Bowls, play another 9 years in the NFL, and in 2017 was inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
People say Hollywood couldn't have written it any better. After this, they don't have a chance.
One of the most unlikely stories in the history of the NFL, that was just the start of an unforgettable 21st century for Eastern Iowa. On September 11th, 2001, America and the world watched in horror as New York City suffered one of the most vicious attacks of terror on American soil in our nation's history. And for days, there were questions surrounding how and when to move forward. For 10 days, not a single professional sporting event was played until the Mets hosted the Braves at Shea Stadium, just 12 miles from where the towers fell.
And the home of the brave.
And in Iowa, the state spent the fall season united in support for New York and the nation. The break in athletics was a bit more brief closer to home that Friday night with moments of silence across every football field in Iowa. Local coaches hoping that the return to football meant a brief distraction from what was happening on the world stage.
You know, there have been a lot of difficult decisions all week for lots of people, and we're certainly subject to criticism. But, you know, what we're fighting for in this country is normalcy, and we believe that our kids, this is the normal life for them.
Small college football also returned this Saturday after 9/11 with Cornell College hosting Wartburg on the afternoon of the 15th.
Where are the kids if they're not here? And we made this week a focus every day in practice. It was a focus in our game today, and it was a focus in the pregame. And in a sense, this is what we really need to heal as a nation.
But many Division I schools took that week away from the field. The Cyhawk game, scheduled for the 15th, was postponed to November 24th, still the latest in the season that the Cyhawk rivalry has ever been played. And on an unseasonably warm 57-degree day in Ames, Tony Yelk kicked a 32-yard field goal to give the Cyclones a 3-point win and secure a spot in a bowl game. Every year on September 11th, the nation looks back to remember that in 2001, even the sports world came to a stop and tried to put these games into perspective before helping the nation return to what could feel something like normal again. After 3 years building the program back to Big Ten relevance, 2002 was headlined by Iowa's return not just to the status of a bowl-caliber team, but as one of the best teams in America. That August, Iowa was not even ranked in the preseason top 25, and after a crushing Week 3 loss to Iowa State, where the Cyclones overcame a 17-point deficit, there were doubts about where this team could even finish in the Big Ten. The Hawkeyes rallied in a way nobody outside of that locker room saw coming.
I think our guys are showing that they're learning each and every week, and if we can continue to do that, we're not a bad football team at that point.
Brad Banks, C.J. Jones, Fred Russell, and that high-powered offense scored a combined 90 points over the next 2 weeks, including an overtime win on the road at Penn State. That was the game that finally put Iowa into the top 25, and the wins just kept coming. Road wins in Bloomington and Ann Arbor. A Heartland Trophy win over Wisconsin, followed by a 62-10 beatdown of Northwestern. The entire season covered by former KGAN sports director Andy Garman.
The Iowa Hawkeyes absolutely blasted Northwestern.
And the season finale, an unforgettable performance north of the border, dominating the Gophers at the Hubert H. Humphrey Metrodome, where the Hawkeyes ran for almost 400 yards. The fans tried to take the goalposts out of the stadium, and the Hawkeyes secured a share of the Big Ten title.
You're going to have a hard time getting a smile off my face for about 2 weeks. I'll be walking around like some nut.
Just an absurd amount of talent on that team. 10 players who would get drafted over the next 2 seasons. 17 players earned first or second team Big Ten honors. 6 players were first or second team All-American. Eric Steinbach was the Big Ten's Offensive Lineman of the Year. Dallas Clark won the Mackey Award as the nation's best tight end. Nate Kading won the Groza Award as the nation's best kicker. Kirk Ferentz was the AP Coach of the Year, and Brad Banks, in a season that will go down as one of the greatest in Hawkeye history, the Big Ten MVP, the AP Player of the Year, and the runner-up for the Heisman Trophy.
It's just a great thing right now to be standing here talking to you guys about a Heisman. You know what? Where was I last year? You know what? I'm sitting right here now talking about a Heisman, man.
His was a season that Iowa fans will never forget. The trip to the Orange Bowl, maybe a little easier for Iowa fans to flush that one from the memory.
Iowa's first trip to the Orange Bowl turned out to be a pretty ugly one.
With the loss to USC, Iowa ended the season ranked number 8 in the country, but that 2002 calendar year was dominated by Hawkeye football, a season that helped turn a generation of many Iowans back into die-hard Hawkeye fans and helped propel this program back to national prominence. 2003 was the culmination of maybe the best basketball career in Iowa history. Out in Fairbank, Brooks McCowan had been lighting up the scoreboards at Wapsie Valley since he entered high school. And KGAN reporters Kevin Hall and Andy Garman had been covering his career from start to finish.
Brooks has definitely established himself as a go-to guy for Wapsie Valley.
A lot of their success has to do with guard play, including Brooks McCowan.
McCowan averaged more than 30 points each of his final 3 years of high school, and he was averaging a triple-double as a senior for the Warriors. And on February 26, 2003, McCowan came into their game against Southwind on the doorstep of history. Early in the third quarter, a rebound and putback gave McCowan 2,651 points, eclipsing the record that had been held for just 6 years by Tri-Center's Corey Cochran.
It feels good. I'm just happy to win the game, though. The rest of the team stepped up when I was struggling in the first half, and that's why we're a good ball club, because everybody else comes out and plays hard.
But McCowan's senior season still had more to come. The Warriors made a run to the 2A state championship where they would ultimately lose to Sioux Center. But late in the fourth quarter, McCowan hit a three-pointer that gave him 1,002 points on the season.
He got it. He got it.
And over 2 decades later, he remains Iowa's only member of the 4-digit club. 2,831 career points. McCowan's records still seem untouchable. McCowan now has held the standard for 22 years, and no player has even come within 300 points of his career mark.
I'd be out in the gym at 7 just to get up 100 shots or a couple hundred shots. I come out and shoot 100 free throws, 250 threes.
And it is worth mentioning, McCowan is still 4th all-time in career assists, over 1,000 career rebounds as well. McCowan was nothing if not diverse.
Well, he's probably the best player I've coached up to this point, and I've probably had players that maybe have been better rebounders, better pure shooters, but with the overall aspect of the game, he's definitely the best player I've coached.
He went on to an outstanding career at UNI and has been a college coach for the last 18 years, but his senior season in the 2003 calendar year will long be remembered as one of the greatest single seasons in the history of Iowa high school sports. In the early 2000s, Iowa was establishing itself as a force in the Big Ten. 2 years after their run to the Orange Bowl, the 2004 season had a very different energy coming in. Ranked in the top 20 in most preseason polls, the Hawkeyes got boat raced on the road in Arizona and then lost their Big Ten opener in Ann Arbor.
The Hawkeyes have a lot of things to fix, but they're definitely not out of the ballpark. Still have a chance for a really good season.
But just like they did after the loss to Iowa State in 2002, the Hawkeyes rallied, winning their next 6 conference games, including a memorable 6-4 win over Penn State, a game that was played just 6 days after Kirk Ferentz's father died, leading to an emotional post-game scene from Coach Ferentz.
How can you put it into words, sir?
I really can't. Just extremely proud of our team, and it's just a great effort by everybody involved. This is just a heck of a game, heck of a team win for us. There are a couple guys up in heaven pretty happy today, I'll promise you that.
The Hawkeyes rode a 6-game winning streak into the regular season finale against number 9 Wisconsin, a game that Iowa dominated in front of a sold-out Kinnick Stadium, securing another Big Ten championship.
After 2-2, didn't even worry about it. Again, just philosophically, if you can make it into November where it counts, then anything can happen, and that's we allowed ourselves to do that. But it was a hard road getting there. We all know that.
Their early season losses kept Iowa out of the conversation for a BCS bowl game, but a spot in the Capital One Bowl would give Iowa fans one of the most electrifying moments in program history. Down by 1 with under 10 seconds to play, Drew Tate dials up Warren Holloway for a walk-off touchdown catch. A New Year's Day miracle, capping another Big Ten title-winning season, which 21 years later remains the last time the Hawkeyes won a conference crown, behind another season that turned Hawkeye fans into believers. The 2005 season stands at the apex of UNI football's time in the national spotlight, thanks to a postseason run that almost never happened. After a 3-1 start, the Panthers hit a speed bump in October, losing 2 out of 3 games. Ranked 23rd in the country, UNI could not lose another game if they wanted a spot in the postseason. Back in the old days of a 16-team bracket, even 3 losses was almost always going to keep you out of the postseason. But UNI rallied in a way Panther fans never would have imagined. A win over number 11 Youngstown State, then a double overtime win over number 6 Western Kentucky, and then a touchdown connection from Eric Sanders to Jamie Goodwin to beat number 4 Southern Illinois. 3 wins over top 15 opponents sent UNI to the playoffs, where the dramatics only intensified. First round, a last-minute field goal off the foot of Brian Wingert to beat Eastern Washington. Then they went out to a bitterly cold Durham, New Hampshire, where they toppled the number 1 team in the country. Another Wingert field goal gave the Panthers what Mark Farley called the biggest win in the history of UNI football.
They're playing as a team. It's not one player that's making plays every week. Every week I come into this room, there's different players sitting with me. And I think that's the difference in this team right now. It's very determined.
The following week, an overtime interception from Matt Tharp, the first of his career, sent UNI to the national title game for the first time in their history.
They've won close games, and they've won in overtime. Forget the cardiac cats. These are the pulmonary Panthers.
This was the one that stood in our way. And now we just need to go put a good plan together, prep this week, and take this team into Chattanooga and do the best we can.
The FCS championship game is one UNI fans would love to forget. The Panthers squandered a 16-7 first-half lead, getting shut out in the second half and falling 21-16 to an Appalachian State team that will go on to win 3 straight national titles.
Nobody thought we'd get this far, especially after midway through the season we were sitting 4-3. So, to what we did, I mean, it's pretty remarkable.
The end was far from perfect, but the biggest Eastern Iowa sports story from 2005, that UNI team that captivated football fans across the state. In 2006, the Hawkeye wrestling program was looking for the man who could put the team back on the top of the national podium, and who better to lead the team than Tom Brands. A former Hawkeye and Olympic gold medalist, Tom had served on staff under Dan Gable and Jim Zaleski, and in April of 2006, after 2 seasons as a head coach at Virginia Tech, Tom Brands, alongside his twin brother Terry, returned to Iowa City to lead the Hawkeyes back to the promised land.
And there's no place that I wanted to coach other than Iowa. So it is, I don't like saying a dream come true because I don't believe in dreams, I believe in going after it, but it is great gratification for me.
The move was not without controversy. Jay Borschel, Brent Metcalf, and 3 other wrestlers followed Brands to Iowa, but Vatek would not let them out of their commitments, so all 5 wrestlers lost a year of eligibility in order to follow Brands to Iowa. But they also helped lay the foundation for Iowa's late 2000s dynasty. In just his second season as head coach, Brands led the Hawkeyes to the first of 3 straight national titles. Brands is just about to begin his 20th season as Iowa's head coach. He's won 4 national titles. He's been a 5-time Big Ten and 3-time National Coach of the Year. He's coached 14 NCAA champions and 26 Big Ten champs, with a duels record of 291 wins and only 28 losses. One of the most decorated coaches in the history of Hawkeye athletics, who in 2006 chose to come back home where he could build Iowa back into a national power. 2007 was the year when Cedar Rapids fully became a golf city. Zach Johnson, he was just a kid who graduated from Regis High School, wasn't even the best golfer on his high school or college team, but 9 years after turning pro, Zach's grind paid off with an unforgettable weekend in Augusta, Georgia. 1 under after day 1 and even par after day 2, Zach entered the weekend tied for 4th place. With cold and windy conditions on Saturday, Zach fell to 4 over, but the rest of the field was so beat up that he was still in the hunt.
Zach Johnson winding up and unloading. He's got a determined look on his face.
The back 9 of the last round was when Zach channeled his magic. 3 birdies over the final 6 holes got him back to +1, which that year was good for a green jacket.
I want to give a thanks to my wife, Kim. I'm not so sure I believed in this, but I know she did, and she's my rock.
Only the 3rd time in Masters history that the winner finished over par. A $1.3 million purse catapulted Zach's career as one of the premier names in professional golf.
Number 2.
It's a magical week. First I win the Masters, and now I get to tell lame jokes on a third-rate talk show.
Yes, that's right.
8 years later, he won the British Open. He's been a top 8 finisher at 5 major events. In 2023, he was named the captain of the Ryder Cup team, one of the most popular players in the sport, whose true rise to fame began at Augusta National in early April of 2007. 2008 will forever be remembered by Iowa fans as the season of green. Sean Green was coming off a season where he had to leave the school in order to get his academics in order. So there were few who could have envisioned the type of performance he put together that fall. 1 week after another, one run after the next, nothing but consistency from Iowa's running back. Over the first 7 games, 100-plus yards every single time. Impressive, yes, but the performance that thrust him fully into the national spotlight was Week 8 at Kinnick Stadium against Wisconsin. With the Heartland Trophy on the line, Sean Green beat up the Badgers to the tune of 217 yards and 4 touchdowns.
I don't think of stuff before I do anything or nothing like that. Holes just happened to be open, and I just had enough room to make some moves here and there.
He's very determined. He's very tough-minded, and he's a guy who can spark a football team.
2 games later, at home against Penn State, Kinnick Stadium held a green-out game honoring the best running back in the country who, against the unbeaten number 3 team in the nation, ran for 117 yards and 2 touchdowns, helping spoil the Nittany Lions' perfect season. The game after that, another 211 yards against Purdue. Sean Green took on all comers in the Big Ten, and every opponent came up lacking. 100-plus yards in every game that season. The only running back in Iowa history to accomplish that feat. 1,850 yards on the ground, a record that no Hawkeye has come within 150 yards of in the program's entire history. Sean Green was the Big Ten MVP, a unanimous All-American. He won the Doak Walker Award as the nation's best running back.
I owe a lot of credit to my offensive line. They did a great job this season. So hats off to them, and they got me where I am right now. So.
And he finished 6th in that year's Heisman voting. He'd go on to a 6-year career in the NFL, but Sean Green will forever be remembered for 2008, the season when he was unstoppable. In 2009, Iowa lost one of its all-time great leaders. Ed Thomas was the model of what small-town Iowa wants out of its high school coaches, valuing the 3 F's: faith, family, and football. Ed excelled in all 3, and the record books tell the story of his place in history. Over 37 seasons, he won 292 games, mostly at Appleton Parkersburg. He brought a pair of state titles to the Falcons. In 2005, he was named the NFL Coach of the Year, and in 2008, he restored a bit of normal back to his city after Parkersburg suffered a deadly tornado that summer. But 2009 was the end of a life cut short far too soon. Murdered in the school's weight room by one of his former players.
The shockwaves of this death of Coach Thomas are felt across the community tonight.
Hundreds of people gathered at Ed Thomas Field, that's named after the coach himself who helped rebuild it last year.
Ed Thomas was mourned not just in his community, but across the state. Football players from around Iowa lined the streets of Parkersburg in their football uniforms for his funeral. Across the country, his death made headlines. He was on the cover of Sports Illustrated. ESPN broadcast the Falcons' first game of the 2009 season.
20 moments of the half. Hornbuckle goes in, standing out. Touchdown, Falcons.
And he was posthumously awarded the Arthur Ashe Courage Award of the 2010 ESPYs.
Everything he did based off his faith, and that's what he led us by. My dad was known as a football coach, as the NFL Football Coach of the Year. But that's not who he was. Anybody who really knew him he was led by his faith, and then his family, and finally his football.
Ed Thomas has been gone for over 16 years, but his legend is one that can never be forgotten. 2010 in Eastern Iowa will always be remembered by the upset, the shot, the name, the unforgettable season for the UNI basketball team. A year after Ben Jacobson led the Panthers to the NCAA tournament in 2009, UNI Hoops fans were high on what this team was bringing back to the roster. All-time great Panthers like Adam Cook, Jordan Eggleseder, Kajoa Helgba, leading UNI to a 27-4 record in the regular season and a 15-3 record in the MVC. 3 games in St. Louis, complete Arch Madness dominance, winning every conference tournament game by 15-plus points and claiming their second straight MVC title.
We had a lot of targets on our back this year, but, we're ready for anyone.
How good does that trophy feel in your hand?
It's amazing. There's no better feeling than this.
Ranked in the top 25, the Panthers got criminally underseeded with a 9 seed at the NCAA tournament, so an uphill battle would lay the groundwork for one of the most unforgettable runs in tournament history. Game 1 against UNLV, with under 5 seconds left in the game, Iowa City West grad and Kirkwood transfer Ali Farokhmanesh buried a 3-pointer to lead UNI to its first tournament win in 20 years.
It's just one of those things where it feels good when it leaves your hands, but you never know really until it goes in, so I was just glad it went through the hoop.
Do you want that last second shot?
I think if you play basketball, you want that last second shot. That's why you play the game. That's why you practice all the time.
But the best of Ali was yet to come. In the second round, facing the #1 team in the country in Kansas, UNI pulled off one of the great upsets of the century. Farokhmanesh, with one of the most ill-advised yet mesmerizing shots in tournament history, drilling the dagger with under 30 seconds left, sending the Panthers to the Sweet 16 for the first and only time in program history.
I'm here in the media room at the Ford Center. They have this huge bracket on the wall, and I bet you there aren't many people in the nation whose bracket looks like this.
We just believed in each other. Coach believed in us, and it's just such a great feeling to knock off the best team in the country.
Farokhmanesh landed on the cover of Sports Illustrated the following week. The team won an ESPY for the biggest upset of the year.
I'm afraid Ali might shoot that thing. Why don't you give it over there to Adam?
The Panthers' tournament run ended in the Sweet 16 against Michigan State, but that moment in Oklahoma City is one that lives on in March Madness lore. In 2011, the Iowa City West community suffered a tragedy that no high school should have to endure: the death of a classmate. Caroline Found, just before the start of her senior season, died in a moped accident in Iowa City. Found was the heart of that team in life, and the women of Troy continued to find inspiration in her death. Live Like Line was West's mantra that season, and they found a new motivation to play for Caroline, along with the rest of the Found family. Caroline's mother, Ellen, died of cancer less than 2 weeks after Caroline's tragic death, and the Trojan community rallied around the Found family.
I don't know how to explain it. You just know she's with us, watching us.
We're playing with Caroline. She's always been part of us. She's in our heart. We miss her horribly.
With heavy hearts, the volleyball team won 40 games that season. None more astonishing than the 4A championship game. Playing against their crosstown rivals from City High, the Trojans rallied from a 2-0 hole to win the final 3 sets, a reverse sweep capped by an 18-16 final set, and an unforgettable finish to one of the most inspired runs in the history of Iowa volleyball.
I don't know if any team has ever had to persevere and overcome what they have, and it's been an incredible journey. We didn't win it again. We just didn't know we were going to do it without her on the court, but she was with us.
Coach Kathy Bresnahan captured the story of that championship season in her book, The Miracle Season, which was later adapted into a film starring Helen Hunt and William Hurt. And still 14 years later, the Trojan volleyball team remembers that championship season and remembers Caroline Found and what her life meant to that community. 2012 saw the end of one of the great basketball careers in the Metro, in the MVC, or in the state. Linn-Mar's Marcus Page could be compared to few who have come before or since. Page was a star from the day he stepped foot on the court. He played in all 26 games as a freshman for a Linn-Mar team that played in the 4A title game. All 4 years of high school, Page and the Lions were one of the last 4 teams standing in Class 4A, a career record of 89-6 with only 3 losses in the regular season for his career and a perfect 23-0 season in 2011, leading Linmar to a 4A state championship. Page ended his career with over 1,700 career points, the most in Metro history, a record that stood until this last winter. The number 22 overall recruit in the country, Page is the last Iowa boys player to compete in the McDonald's All-American game.
And Page able to finish.
Page followed in the footsteps of Harrison Barnes as Iowa preps to commit to Roy Williams in North Carolina. He remains the only 3-time team captain in UNC history and led the Tar Heels to the Final Four as a senior. Afterwards, he played 7 seasons professionally, but is now back on staff as an assistant coach at UNC. 13 years after finishing high school, Page is still remembered as one of the best basketball players in Iowa history. February 12th, 2013 is a day most in the wrestling world would like to forget. The day that the International Olympic Committee announced that they would drop wrestling from the Olympics beginning in 2020. And those in the wrestling community took that decision hard.
It's worse than death because you can't control death. I feel like we could have controlled this to some degree.
Even people who aren't wrestling fanatics, and they all agree that it doesn't make sense.
It is absolutely not over. It's the scrap has just begun to get this thing back going.
That same day the IOC made the announcement, Iowans got to work. Then Governor Terry Branstad launched a campaign to help save the sport, along with Dan Gable, the Brands brothers, and UNI head coach Doug Schwab. And less than 7 months later, another vote was held which locked wrestling back into the games for at least the next 3 Olympics.
With 49 votes, wrestling has been elected for the
You cannot overstate the impact that the state of Iowa, particularly Brands and Gable, had on this decision. They helped rally the state, the country, the rest of the world to keep wrestling in the Olympic Games.
If we hadn't won this vote, we wouldn't have given up. It's always easier to work on success than defeat.
This sport, which has been around since the ancient Olympics, will be at the Olympic Games in LA in 2028, and it appears safe to remain alive at the Olympic level for the foreseeable future, thanks largely to that plucky group of Iowans in 2013. In 2014, we saw the end of a streak that still lives on in the Iowa record books. Winners of a then national best 56 straight games, the Regina football team saw its winning streak come to an end in the season opener against Solon. Regina was coming off 4 straight state titles, 4 straight perfect seasons, matching the Iowa high school record with 56 straight wins. A record set by Waterloo East that had stood for over 40 years. But in the end, it was Solon, the last team to beat Regina in the 2009 state quarterfinals. They bested the Regals in a 29-28 overtime classic. But in classic Marv Cook fashion, Regina found a way to rally.
It was a life lesson for us. I held my head extremely high afterwards because I knew that they had given everything they had. We made mistakes, yes. That's part of life, and you got to overcome those things.
He's definitely taught us how to be young men. He's taught us how to win with pride. Lose with class recently, and it's made us all better because of it.
Regina followed that loss with 13 more wins and a 5th straight state title, and there would be a 6th straight title the next season. Were it not for that OT defeat to Solon, Regina's win streak would have reached 77 games. But as it stands, the Regals remain tied atop the Iowa record books with a 56-game win streak and a spot in Iowa history as one of our all-time great football dynasties. The 2015 football season was everything Hawkeye fans could have wanted out of Kirk Ferentz's 16th season leading the Swarm. Unranked in the preseason AP poll, it took until week 5 for the Hawkeyes to crack the top 25. The wins were not always beautiful, but the wins did keep coming nevertheless. A 3-point win over Pitt, a 4-point win at Wisconsin, a 5-point win against Minnesota. Week after week, the Hawkeyes kept finding ways to come out on top. And after beating Nebraska in the season finale for the only time since 2009, the Hawkeyes were in possession of all 4 rivalry trophies.
Today in Lincoln, they silenced the doubters one more time when they finished off a 12-0 regular season.
12-0 speaks for itself. We're a good team. We've done a good job this season, and it doesn't happen by chance. You don't win games by chance, and we've done a good job closing out games all season long and winning games. And 12-0 is as good as you can be right now.
A perfect 12-0 regular season, Iowa had risen all the way to number 4 in the AP polls ahead of a top 5 matchup with Michigan State in the Big Ten title game, a game that Hawkeye fans can never forget. After holding a 13-9 lead in the final minute of the game, a stretch across the goal line by L.J. Scott gave the Spartans the Big Ten title and a place in the college football playoff. The Hawkeyes earned a spot in the Rose Bowl, and frankly, I think Iowa fans will appreciate if I mention as little about that game as possible. Suffice it to say, the 2 losses at the end of the year were the conclusion of what might be the best season of the Kirk Ferentz era. A 12-2 record, the biggest bowl game since the early 90s, and the definition of a team dynamic. Outside of Desmond King's unanimous All-American status, there were only 2 first-team All-Big Ten players, and Austin Blythe was the only player drafted the following spring. In the absence of any major offensive stars, the Hawkeyes just found a way to make it work, finishing as the number 9 team in the country after a perfect regular season and nearly earning their first berth in the CFP. The 2015-2016 season saw Panther fans run the gamut of emotions, from elation to heartbreak, from the edge of their seat to the depths of despair. The season began with one of the most historic regular season wins in UNI history. Less than 6 years after beating number 1 Kansas in the NCAA tournament, the Panthers knocked off number 1 North Carolina at the McLeod Center, sending this team back into the national spotlight. A few weeks later, they beat a number 5 Iowa State team, but an up-and-down conference schedule, and the Panthers only finished 4th in the regular season standings. But they channeled the magic in the postseason. In the MVC semifinals, an overtime win over a ranked Wichita State team. And then in the MVC title game, a game that looked headed for overtime, but with time winding down, Wes Washburn hit maybe the wildest buzzer beater in the history of Arch Madness.
To make it to the tournament.
With an MVC title in tow, the Panthers headed to the NCAA tournament in Oklahoma City, the same arena where Ali Farokhmanesh made his mark in tournament lore just 6 years prior, and Paul Jesperson must have been possessed by the spirit of Ali in the opening round against Texas. Tie game with time winding down, another Panther miracle.
You know what, I thought I had a chance when I released it, because I came towards the center of the floor, so I kind of thought I had a good chance to go in, and, I'm just glad it went in.
2 days later, the Panthers looked like a team bound for another Sweet 16 appearance, leading by 12 points with under 35 seconds left. Panther fans still grow nauseous thinking about this sequence of events. 4 turnovers in 30 seconds. Every shot was dropping for the Aggies, who made up the entire deficit to send the game to overtime, where another UNI lead with 10 seconds left fell by the wayside, and Texas A&M finally broke the Panther hearts in double overtime.
I'm just proud of the team for fighting through, man. Obviously, it's not what we wanted, not what we expected. I'm just happy that we kept fighting till the end.
The biggest blown lead in NCAA tournament history. It still haunts Panther fans 9 years later, a fan base that in the span of 3 days got to experience a miracle and a meltdown. 2017 was the start of something special, a tradition that's become a weekly happening in the fall at Kinnick Stadium, honored by the Hawkeyes, Iowa fans, referees, and the opponents, a tradition for everyone, but especially for the kids. The wave started with a simple suggestion on Facebook by Christy Young, an idea that with the recently finished Children's Hospital, that every game, all the fans and players should turn and wave to the kids watching from the windows above the stadium. In week 1 of that season, a home game against Wyoming, a tradition was born, a tradition honored even by the deepest Hawkeye rivals.
Well, I think I saw it, and I looked at my wife, Heather. I said, that might be the coolest thing I've ever seen. What it does is it connects the past, present, and also future, right? It's something that lives a lot longer than all of us, and I think that's what's really special about tradition.
A heartwarming moment celebrated each week. Though only 8 years since its inception, it's been named the best tradition in college sports. A time to recognize the kids who have endured so much and deserve a moment to be honored. Kids like Kelby Thielander, who was once a kid captain watching games from the Children's Hospital and grew up to play for the Hawkeyes. Even during road games, Hawkeye fans will turn and wave in the direction of the Children's Hospital. That simple Facebook post from 8 years ago started a tradition for the kids that's provided a brief moment of unity between the Hawkeyes and their opponents every Saturday in the fall. In 2018, his 19th season at the Post, Kirk Ferentz took one more step into the Hawkeye history books. In that year's season opener against Northern Illinois, Kirk and the Hawkeyes had to grind out a 33-7 win over the Huskies, a season-opening win that was the 144th of his tenure at Iowa. passing his mentor, Hayden Fry, for the most wins as a Hawkeye head football coach. The normally stoic Coach Ferentz showing a rare sign of emotion after the game as he took his place alone on top of the Hawkeye Mountain. And the wins haven't slowed down for Captain Kirk. Just this season, Ferentz became the Big Ten's all-time leader in wins, 212 down, with seemingly plenty more in the tank, as Kirk announced that he will be back for at least the 2026 season.
I feel good physically. I've got permission from my wife to keep doing this, and it's what I like doing. I really like enjoying it or enjoy doing it. I don't envision stopping anytime in the near future. It's what I do.
Hayden Fry's name still holds a lofty place among Hawkeye fans, but 2018 was the season that Kirk Ferentz overtook the man who gave him his first big break in the coaching world. Before Caitlin Clark was transcendent, Megan Gustafson was filling the seats at Carver Hawkeye Arena. Never let your kids forget that there was a GOAT before the GOAT with Hawkeye women's basketball, and in 2019, Gustafson helped put Iowa back on the map. Over 4 years, the lightly recruited post out of the smallest school in Wisconsin had developed into a sensation. In her final year in the black and gold, Gustafson led the nation in points, field goal percentage, and double-doubles. She became only the fourth player in women's college history to score 1,000 points in a single season. She broke 16 program records and 8 Big Ten records, leading Iowa to the Elite Eight. And after all that, Gustafson won nearly every imaginable national award: ESPN's Player of the Year, the AP Player of the Year, the Big Ten Athlete of the Year, and she was the first Big Ten women's player in history to win the Naismith Award.
Thanks, Hawk fans, for believing in this really small town girl. Go Hawks.
We didn't know it at the time, but the best was yet to come. But in 2019, Megan Gustafson helped turn Iowa into a national contender. 2020 will be remembered around the world for the COVID-19 pandemic. Here in Iowa, the state association crowned its 4 state basketball champions on March 13th in a Wells Fargo arena that only allowed 200 fans per game. And after that, the courts, fields, pitches, and tracks went dark. Not a single sport played in Iowa or the country for the next 2.5 months. But on June 15th, Iowa became the first in the nation to return to the fields. The only state in America where high school baseball and softball are played in the summer, the Hawkeye State was presented with a unique opportunity to set the tone for what the next year of sports might look like. New rules regarding social distancing, cleaning the balls, and no sunflower seeds allowed. But the season carried forward. After missing out on an entire spring season of sports, Iowa pulled off an albeit abbreviated but remarkably complete baseball and softball season, giving towns of all sizes in Iowa something to distract from the pandemic going on around them. From there, the slow return to normal began with the ensuing football seasons. At the college level, games were played in front of completely empty stadiums. The same will hold true for the following basketball seasons. 5 years later, we've now returned to a normal space in the sports world, but in 2020, the state of Iowa set the stage for what high school sports could look like in the midst of a global pandemic. August 12th, 2021 was a day that was years, maybe decades, maybe over 100 years in the making, when professional baseball for the first time came to the state of Iowa. Long a destination for baseball fans, the Field of Dreams movie site would host an actual Major League Baseball game on that late summer night. The Yankees and the White Sox boasting some of the biggest stars in the sport, getting their first glimpse of Eastern Iowa.
You know, the whole bus ride, the 40 minutes or 45 minutes, whatever it was to get out here, man. Nobody was on their phones. Everybody was looking outside, checking it out, just excited for this experience.
Kevin Costner himself led the players onto the field before the first pitch, and the game itself didn't have to be what it was. The night was already an enormous success, but Chicago and New York put on a display that none present could ever forget. An early 7-3 White Sox lead disappeared as the Yankees scored 4 runs in the top of the ninth, Giancarlo Stanton giving the Yanks an 8-7 lead. But in the bottom of the ninth, Tim Anderson delivered the final fireworks with a walk-off home run into the Dyersville night sky. All involved, from fans to players to media to the brass at Major League Baseball, all agreed the event was a tremendous success. The Field of Dreams game was back in Dyersville in 2022, and it will return again in 2026. Anytime a professional event comes to Iowa, it's a noteworthy moment in time, but that night in 2021 is one that Iowans will never forget. Rarely do we get to see the genesis of a new sport in Iowa, but in January of 2022, at the unsanctioned girls state wrestling meet in Coralville, the IGHSAU announced that beginning the following year, girls wrestling would become the 11th championship sport offered by the Girls Union. Over the 4 years prior to this announcement, the Iowa Wrestling Coaches Association put on its own state meet, which started with just 87 girls participating, but by 2022 had grown to nearly 700 entries. And now, less than 4 years after officially sanctioning girls wrestling, the sport has exploded around Iowa. Last year, the state meet was split into 2 classes for the first time. And now this year, over 200 schools across the state are fielding their own teams. With the national championship program in Iowa City, countless young women are exploring a sport that they never even would have dreamed about just 15 years ago. For decades, high school girls had few options in Iowa. You could play basketball, you could be a cheerleader, and in recent years, you could be a bowler. But in 2022, with wrestling being sanctioned after years of petitioning, there are more opportunities for the Iowa girl than ever before. 2023 in Eastern Iowa saw the rise of one of the sport's biggest stars, and it launched the Tiger Hawk into a global brand. But Caitlin Clark might not have become Caitlin Clark were it not for Iowa's deepest run in the history of their women's basketball program. The Hawkeyes lost 6 games that regular season, 3 to teams ranked in the nation's top 10, and their late season loss to Maryland is what Coach Lisa Bluter came to call the team's March Medicine. After that L in College Park, the Hawkeyes went on a furious run, unlike anything the program had seen before. It started with Caitlin's unforgettable buzzer beater against Indiana.
You know, I'm all about growing the women's game, and I'm glad I gave a lot of something, little girls can probably scream about at the top of their lungs. And I can imagine that, when I was younger, I was doing the exact same thing watching on TV. So it was pretty fun.
Then the Hawkeyes absolutely coasted through the Big Ten tournament, winning the conference title by 33 points, the biggest blowout in Big Ten championship history. Then this team of best friends who'd been starting together for 3 years straight started to cement their place in Hawkeye lore. A couple of wins at Carver against Southeastern Louisiana and Georgia. 2 wins in Seattle over Colorado and Louisville sent Iowa to its first Final Four since the early 90s.
We've been saying all year long, why not us? Why can't we do it? So that's just kind of the mentality that we're going to have. We're going to believe in ourselves. We're going to believe we can win the basketball game, and, that's really all you can do.
And then one of the biggest wins in school history. Iowa knocked off the reigning undefeated champions from South Carolina in the Final Four, punching its first ever ticket to the national title game.
It's the American dream, right? Everybody wants to be a part of a team that really loves each other and cares about each other, and I think you can see that in our team.
Iowa got the chance to walk the red carpet into the national championship in Dallas, where they would fall 1 win short of the team's first NCAA title. But that tournament run helped springboard the Hawkeyes into one of the nation's most popular teams over the next year. There are few who could have envisioned the moment in time when the entire sports world was talking about a young woman in Iowa. Raised in Des Moines and found her fame in Iowa City, Caitlin Clark spent most of 2024 as possibly the most famous sports personality in the entire country. Her final season in Iowa began on the biggest stage we've ever seen in women's hoops, a basketball court on the field at Kinnick Stadium, where over 55,000 fans were part of the largest crowd ever to watch a women's basketball game. And somehow from there, the legend of Caitlin only grew. Once we hit December, there was not a single game that Iowa played where they weren't in front of a sold-out crowd. Home and on the road, absolutely everyone had to get a glimpse of this generational star. And rarely, if ever, did she disappoint. That final season in a Hawkeye jersey was one never to be forgotten. Late in the season against Michigan, a ridiculous three-pointer gave her the women's career scoring record.
You all knew I was going to shoot a logo 3 for the record. Come on now. But it's just kind of cool to see the evolution of, what this has become. And it takes time to build something like this. And obviously Coach Bluter has built such a great program here. But, I feel like we've kind of taken it to another level.
From that point on, it was a cascade of one record after another, falling in Caitlin's wake. She broke Pete Maravich's NCAA scoring mark that some thought would never be touched. She broke the NCAA record for three-pointers and the career tournament record for points, assists, and three-pointers. In that final season, she won every imaginable national honor, leading Iowa to a second straight appearance in the national title game. And just days later, she was the #1 pick in the WNBA draft.
The Indiana Fever select Caitlin Clark, University of Iowa.
She was the Rookie of the Year and first-team All-WNBA, and off the court, she was everywhere. State Farm commercials, Saturday Night Live, a butter sculpture, Monday Night Football, 60 Minutes, Time Magazine, and all of her exposure only helped to grow the game of women's basketball. She's taken the sport to heights it has never seen before. She has a long future of all-star games and endorsement deals in front of her, but that year, 2024, will live forever as the year that Iowa was proud to stand behind its own international superstar. Eastern Iowa's most notable story from this last calendar year started in Epworth, but on the blue oval at Drake Stadium took the running world by storm. Quentin Nauman is a humble kid at Western Dubuque High School who stalks the dairy aisle at Hy-Vee after school, and on the track he has emerged as one of the best prep runners in America. Already the owner of 4 state titles from his sophomore season, Nauman was the first Iowa boy to sweep the distance Triple Crown at the Drake Relays. Then he won another 4 state titles at the state track meet, anchoring the distance medley to a win, then torching the field in the 800, 1600, and 3200. Not only sweeping the meet, but setting state records in both the 8 and the 16.
My eardrums were bleeding on that back stretch. I was like, holy crap, it's loud. And I didn't think I was ever going to do that in my lifetime, and not even on my home turf. I didn't think I was going to do it here.
He's the first junior in the country to ever run a sub-4-minute 1600 and the first prep athlete in American history to run a sub-4 mile and a sub-150 800 on the same day. Nauman then went to St. Louis and won the Festival of Miles in 3:58.65, making his mark as the best prep distance runner in the country and maybe the best track runner in Iowa history. This fall, Nauman continued his assault on the Iowa record books, breaking the state's all-time cross-country record and then winning his second state cross-country title in a championship record of 14 minutes, 48 seconds. For the future Oregon runner, the best may yet be to come on the state meet next spring when Nauman has one last chance to mark his place as the best runner to ever come through Iowa.